Chapter 10. Disagreeableness. Begin all acts and thinking by using Ankh All. Tablet 12. Ghost Ether. 19 times 23 equals 437. Lo. The English Bible is the manifestation of Leviathan, 6 ether and ghost. Leviathan, 6 ether fire, produces ghost and goat-like hair, dog hair, jackal-like hair. Leviathan is called Jesus, Baal and Lord, and ghost is called God and Christ. The manifestation of the false Jesus, 6 ether, started with the evolution 17,250,000 years ago. The manifestation of Krishna, the Hindu deity or ghost called Christ, started with Cadman and Nakaba through Cain, approximately 42,000 years ago. Therefore, God, ghost, is part of the one supreme being and not of the supreme or almighty himself. When seen with the spiritual eye, ghost looks like a haze or a fog. In light of the previous knowledge about ghost or God, I am using God in the English language, spelt with a small g. However, whether the word God is spelt with a small g or a capital G, the original meaning of the word is the same, but a different definition is given to God with a small g. Whether God has a capital or small g, it is still ghost. Moreover, graveyard forces and those who wear this cross as a shield of Christianity, the graveyards also bear the cross. Thus, the cross becomes the symbol of death, and death is related to ghost, which is very depressive, repressive, and oppressive by nature. This is why, if they do not have some other race or races to suppress, they will oppress and destroy themselves. The word gospel means ghost, spell, or spell of the ghost, which is the same as the spell of God. One knows the nature of God by knowing the nature of the Tamahu race. The etymological or original meaning of the name Jesus is gaseous, conscious fire gases. Jesus or Leviathan is in its moon. That is, ghost manifestation is called Theos or Theoris, Anubis, Hermes, Sin, Siva, Nana, Dina, Queen, God, Christ, etc. The spirit force is called Jesus, a male and female, but the female forces are the dominant. Most other Tamahus accept the false Jesus because they found out that it produces ghost. A ghost is their sustainer and creator. The birth of myth and mythology, which gave birth to theories and theology, is the removal of facts and reality. Their false Jesus, who is really a Jehovah, Zeus in short, it's because Jazus, Jesus, he gave the other Tamahus a chance to get back at the Israelites for refusing to share riches and true spiritual and universal knowledge with them. Their Jesus, their spirit 6 ether, is no friend to the Nubian people. This is why Africa today above the Sahara Desert is mostly in the hands and control of people other than Nubians. The name you call Jesus was the savior of their race. You saw him as some god that had sent a ghost deity Pan, by whose sacrifice would keep the Tamahus in ruling power by turning justice from the guilty until the end of the moon cycle. The wise neither judge a spiritual book by its cover nor by the writing that is found in it, because both can be very deceiving. The way the wise judge spiritual books or religion is by what their leaders and adherents, believers of that book or religion, do, not what they say or what the book states, because it is said, actions speak louder than words, and you know the tree by the fruit it bears. In other words, one knows what the spirit forces of a book or religion represent by knowing what the leaders and adherents of that religion do. So, if a spiritual book and religions are judged by the actions of its adherents rather than its words, this tells you that the spirit forces of their books and religions are dragon and monster forces, speaking beautiful words from hot mountains and bushes in flames of fire and making melodious music. At the same time, they're murdering people and taking their lands, oppressing, suppressing, stealing, lying and ravishing the earth. So all this means that Negroes not knowing what you are worshipping, yet you worshipping spiritual forces that are monsters of the necropolis like Frankenstein, Dracula the zombie, the mummy the werewolf, spirit dragons and demons like the ape man, the dragon serpent, the cat man, the crocodile reptilians, etc. Those spiritual dragons, spiritual monsters and spiritual demons are ghosts or 6 ether or both. Those demon spirits are the nature of the alien religion new beings believe in. This is another reason why the descendants of Six Ether and those like them kill or have it done by others possessed and think nothing of it. The favourite diet of those sadistic monsters is the blood of the innocent, and their favourite pastime is the suffering of the innocent and the mentally dead. When possessed by those spirit demons and ghouls, the person becomes in the likeness of them, and they will prey upon the mentally dead and innocent, like the ghouls prey upon corpses. The names Nymph, Dryad, and Hamadryas are names of lesser deities of sex that were usually depicted as beautiful women. Nymphomania is defined as excessive sexual desire by a female. This is no surprise, since women have the power to entice, seduce, and lure male of the species. Lure ties in with lard or lord by way of the phonetics. Lord or lard is the name used for the monkey people of the first breed of Aborigines. Lars are the trope of spirit monkeys, well known in ancient times. The chief amongst the troop of the spirit monkeys is called La or Lard. In Egyptian theology, the Lord is called Thoth or Tahuti, and he was worshipped as the chief spirit monkey. That was the ancient deity of wisdom and magic. Therefore, some spiritual men call themselves monks today. The spirit monkey is one of the many spirit forms of the false Jesus. The crocodile, the lion, the eagle, the serpent, the horse and dog, such as Anubis of Kemet and other forms of the zodiac, are spirit forms of the false Jesus. The zodiac has many forms that are not shown in the encyclopedias and dictionaries. The zodiac is Canaan, and the evolutionary force is cast from the sun 5,994 years ago. After the Great Flood, Mother Earth and her female energy were referred to as a woman, Ankh, a female demon in ancient times. Their Christ child, called Canaan albino, ghost-like, came after Noah. Christ is a moon word which refers to the moon and to the Christ, Christian child, or children called Tamahus. Canaan had silver and yellow hair and pale pink skin like the colour of ghost. The Hindu moon deity Sin, or Sinji, is known as Ishtar in Sumerian culture and thus set up a whole new religion. The original meaning of the word Sin, a name of the moon deity, is the same as that of Christos and Christ. The group called Automites, with the ruler Autumn and Queen Lilith, who were the Cuthite tribes, were the first dark people converted to the moon god's way of life, or rather, way of death, called Christianity, which upholds the symbol of the cross, which is a known symbol of death. Hence, Canaan and Sala were the first natural-born Christians, meaning the first Christians by nature. This fact was verified when the god ghost passed the cross and its powers from the Hindu to Canaan. Christian means people living under the sign of the cross, which was later adopted by the Aryan race. The swastika is also known as the broken cross and is an ancient symbol, originally used to denote harmony with nature, the four winds and the four seasons and the 4 points of the compass, usually shown with the arms pointed the other way, opposite the way the swastika's arms turn. The arms turned the way of the swastika denotes that the force is turned against nature and they are out of harmony. The moon god ghost is Christ or Krishna, the god and extractor from the Phoenician and East Indian people. Christ is your ghost, the death gases. The moon deity Anubis or Anubu, the symbol of death, is a part of the Leviathan that produces ghost. Therefore, ghost and god are the same. The Tamahu race inherited its colonizing nature from the Phoenicians and its caste nature from the Hindus. No one can be a real Jew or Christian by nature but the Tamahu. Christianity was called the heathens' religion in the Old Testament days, where they worship Molech, a fire deity. The worship of Molech still requires human sacrifices and is dominant throughout Christendom today. The Negro, mentally dead, does not know what it means to accept an alien religion. For example, if a person accepts Hinduism or Mohammedanism as his religion, he should know that he has accepted an East Indians or Indo-Arabs as his visible deities, insofar as the images of authority, respect and admiration is from a specific race. That's why they dress like them and they want to look and be like them, which is other than your own self. Neither can he become equal with or have power over the East Indians or Arabs, so he becomes their slave again. This happens because he has been accepted as the superior power, the same way as with Judaism and Christianity or any other religion that is alien to you. If a new being person accepted Islam or Christianity as his religion, he has accepted the Tamahu as his visible god because their god is depicted as Tamahu. Neither can that person become equal with or have power over the Tamahus, because the Tamahu has been accepted as the superior power in those religions, being the image of the god is in their image. This is why trying to obtain liberty and equality in any alien religion is a cruel hoax. Hinduism is the spirituality and power of the East Indian. Islam and Christianity are religions and power of the Tamahu race. Yours is NWPU, the way of the Anunnaki. The world of religion needs to be dismantled. You can't agree on anything because everyone has their own personal god. The differences between each religion are always pointed out. However, the similarities are never talked about. For example, each religion believes that there is an almighty force that does exist. You'd be eliminating the world's problems with the elimination of religion. Nevertheless, if a person accepts his own spiritual science NWPU, he has accepted himself and his own kind as the superior power. Then, the visible and invisible forces and powers can easily work for you and with you for liberation and well-being. All religions are alien by nature to you, except the spiritual science NWPU. NWPU is the equalizer for you anywhere and at any time. You must embrace the purpose and the plan, and must develop the power to execute that purpose and plan. Idleness and ignorance must play no part in the plan. You must take the plan and pursue the purpose. The purpose must be mental and physical liberation from the adverse forces. The plan must be in pursuit of the purpose via right knowledge, right wisdom and a right understanding. Because right knowledge through right reason tells you what to do, when to do it and where to do it, how to do it, and what must be done in pursuit of the purpose. You get the power to execute the purpose and plan by rejecting the oppressor's religion and his spiritual forces, including the names of his spiritual forces. Control your thinking with right knowledge. Control your physical activities, including your sexual activities. To elaborate a bit further on the first step to power mentioned in the previous paragraph, you must first pass the capability test. The capability test determines whether your mind is capable of growing in and with the new sun cycle, the revolutionary cycle. You have passed the capability test when you are able to actually deny and reject the alien religion's spiritual forces and the names of their spiritual forces such as God, the Force, Jesus, Lord, Christ, Ghost, etc. There is no growth in a person unless he is able to pass the test. Mind power is the greatest power in the universe, and you as a race are greatly in need of it in order to think and do for yourselves, independent of other races, as other races are independent of you. Again, in the days of old, the second step to power is the acceptance of right knowledge by the practice of it. Then universal forces can and will work for you and with you to achieve your goals. The third step is controlling your various emotions and getting things accomplished through right knowledge, sound right reasoning and sound action, instead of trying to escape from your responsibilities through strong drinks, drugs and sexual gratification. The less pleasure you have, the less your burden of liberation will be. A male person who does not control his sexual self is ruled by women or sex because he is a slave to sex. This does not mean that those of a kind should not have sexual relationship, but it does mean that it should be controlled and channeled in the best interests. If a man or a woman can't control their sex, get away from them. They will self-destruct and destroy others with them. Controlling sex means having sexual intercourse without selfish desires and the unnatural acts that are against the laws of nature. Sex is a heavy burden on any race when the sex of that race is out of control. You as an oppressed and captive people cannot afford any extra burden such as extra sexual activities, strong drinking and using dope for those pleasures, because that prevents your growth. Having too much pleasure and too many children are great burdens. Women should not have to take cancer-producing drugs to keep from having too many children, because the husband should be the controlling factor. Sex must also be channeled in the best interests of the human race. There is a great power in sex, and there is great power in the semen, and when he shares that power with a female, if that female is not for the best interests of his race, like the moon converts gases from the sun to negative forces, she will convert much of that semen from the male to negative forces with the help of the enemy oppressor, and they will give birth to black or white devils working to destroy that race. Nakeba Eve converted Cadman's power into agreeable forces, and women have stopped doing that increasingly since then. But now, you do it for Leviathan ever since, turning the children against their father. So males must awaken the women with right knowledge and get them on the side of liberation, mentally, spiritually, physically and sexually, by guiding them right and refusing to be so free with your sexual power. Then build a culture, protective and an economic foundation for your women and children in your own communities, so that women will have no excuse to let men of other races use them as sexual dumping grounds, as they use them and exploit them now. Lovemaking, in the form of sexual affairs with the alien enemy, in all walks of life, is one reason why women do not desire to support the communities today for the future well-being of your descendants, for nobody likes for anybody to talk about his or her lover, sweetheart, etc. And that is what you are doing. When you talk to the women about liberating themselves, the women are easy prey for men of other races, especially Tamahu men, because they are ignorant to the facts. They are in economic traps and are stigmatized by the enemy's religion. His religion softens up women to become his easy victims. Just look at who they teach God is, or what Jesus looks like. Of course your women think she wants them. To be with them is to be with God. But it is time for a change. Right knowledge organizes and unifies the minds individually and collectively. If knowledge is not to be confused and thereby ineffective, it must be in sequence. Knowledge received must be in organized sequence in order to put the mind in order and unity. Organize and put your minds in unity and order, enough to qualify for your own effective spiritual science called NWPU. It will clear the fog and your single eye will reopen. Clairvoyance, clear vision will return and you will see again. The NWPU and the forces and powers thereof are liberty, equality, justice, righteousness and proper survival for new beings everywhere. The NWPU and the powers that make it effective and binding are the equalizers in all fields of necessity and endeavors in which other races offer contest. The liberation forces are not their God, their false Jesus, their Lord, their Christ, nor the spiritual power names of any other race. The liberation forces of NWPians, new beings by nature, is 9 Ether, whose scientific name will be disclosed in the science in the NWPU. 9 Ether is the original creative forces. 9 Ether grew from 9 to the 9th power of 9, a symbol of beyond infinity. Its opposer, the so-called Jews, who are considered the head and chosen by the god of the Tamahu race, because the Jews have at least 1,000 years of universal knowledge, culture and know-how on the other Tamahus, and thereby the Jews are richer, wiser, more observing and more deceptive than the other Tamahus, and they are really the Aryan race. When Leviathan, producing God, ghostized Tamahus from the Phoenician and East Indian peoples, Canaan eventually renamed everything, took over the rulership, and finished up God's creation. As you see, the many man-made things today, altered and increased by the Tamahu race. Most things you see today that were created by people existed in time immemorial, but like the evolutionary forces changed much of the original creation, God's creation, the Tamahu race altered much of what the Nubian, Tarite, Ethiopian, Kushite and the original Sumerians had done and created. Ghost and its seed are the death of death, meaning 6 Ether represents death and Ghost is the death of 6 Ether. That is Ghost, ruler of the moon cycle, and its seed. The albino race marked the end of any evolution. There is no other stage of evolution after Ghost. Therefore, after the cycle of Ghost, evolution reverses, meaning the revolutionary cycle takes over. NWPU informs you that knowledge is knowing. To know is knowledge. Knowledge is mental power. Knowledge is correct information. Of course, knowledge can be thought, spoken or written. Knowledge is the best information. Wisdom is knowing how and when to use that knowledge. Overstanding is receipt of knowledge by the mind, and is the unity of knowledge and wisdom. The greater one's mental power is, the greater the things are he or she can do and will do. Your mental power is deeply lacking, and this is the biggest block between you and reality, between you and the facts, which keep you in a spell of religion and its spookism. NWPU is right knowledge, wisdom and overstanding, and this is what you need to restore your powerful mind of right reason. By this day and time, most of your brain power that is left is being used to support and maintain the alien power structure and his belief and the pursuit of his images and likenesses. You are literally out of your mind. That means not using your mind, not loving your image nor your likeness, but living in the likeness and worshipping the image of the beast. For example, most Nubian college students graduate and professors use what they know to keep the Tamahus in power and dominion over themselves and over their own kind by simply looking for and being content with a mere job in their power structure, and that helps to prolong the barbaric system, instead of using what they know to build something of their own by helping develop their own communities into profitable economic neighborhoods run by NWPU people, the same as students and graduates of other races do to a much greater degree than you. Another part and phase of this major power structure is the churches. Preachers of the gospel, ghost spell, proclaim that they do not like white supremacy. At the same time, Tamahu supremacy is taught in Sunday school and in the pulpit. For instance, in most churches and church books, they show the false Jesus as being Tamahu, the Son of God, a Jew, the chosen of God, and then teach that God is the Almighty and one supreme being. Your children and adults go outside and they see the Tamahu ruling, and he has everything, so they are thoroughly convinced that the only thing for them to do is to serve the chosen of God. That is white supremacy in one of its rawest forms. The forces of Leviathan are beginning to put it in the preachers' minds to keep you deceived longer and deeper by proclaiming that Jesus was black, or at least of the darker peoples, but the false Jesus and God in any colour are no friends of yours, and the brutal enslavement, barbarous oppression and bestial lapidation, one-sided forced sexual mixing under Tamahu religion and civilization are proof of their Jesus and God's enmity to you beyond any reasonable doubt. No spiritual force but an enemy force would help anyone do to you what has been done and is still being done to you. What children should be taught are the facts, and that your spiritual power and spiritual science are not the same as those of the Tamahu race or any other race. Before you can ever get respect from the world's people again, you must first regain trust and respect through proper protection. Proper protection means putting women in a position that they will be the Nakeba, tribal leaders, instead of the chambermaid. This means building moral and economic communities with all the resources that you have access to, spearheaded by right knowledge, proper teachings and sexual discipline, as well as all other restraints necessary. But female counterparts must realize and understand that they must help you become rulers, kings. This means that you are the original rulers or kings. After this, they can take their position as rulers, and this means they have to stop making love to men of other races and start using their energies and mentalities to help maintain their supremacy, not by supporting his kind of society in his churches. The preacher, an imam, is a non-productive religious parasite who preys on the poor, the gullible, and the unreasonable in underdeveloped communities by stirring up their emotions and deceiving the people about heaven after death. Many women in the United States are fully possessed by the Tamahu men, physically, mentally, educationally, occupationally, spiritually, economically, and sexually. They live their lives to be and look like women that are portrayed through the media, even if they pretend they are into a black thing. Deep in their hearts they feel these women are a symbol of beauty and success, and most males are also possessed by them in various ways. But I capitalize the word sexually in the case of women because there is a special campaign underway by Leviathan to destroy racial identity through the sex of women, and at the same time destroy the moral fiber that you may still have. Leviathan is using men of other races to accomplish destroying racial identity. The only one who will ever check that diabolical scheme of mankind and its forces is the male through proper teaching, protection for and direct appeal to women. Leviathan is a giant sex and spirit force. This was in reality Halal, the son of Tarnush, who is able to control people and nations by sex and spirit, generated from blood and the waters of the earth. Leviathan has many spirit members and parts distributed throughout the earth, cast from the sun people of Gan, the enclosed garden, just before the evolutionary cycle began. Some women know that they are working against the best interests of their people and do it deliberately because they are gold diggers, degenerates and opportunists who want to please the master and seducer who keeps them in power. Other women are just ignorant to what's going on, and yet there are still others driven to do things that they would not do, but yet do them because of their poverty-stricken condition. addition, one of the best ways to check women is to give them right knowledge and see that they and their children get proper protection and provisions by way of you males. Some may wonder, why am I still using the word Negro when referring to mentally dead NWPU people? It is because as long as you people have negative enslaved minds, you are still Negroes, no matter what other names you choose to call yourselves, and by calling themselves something other than Negro, deceives you into believing that you are not Negroes anymore. Therefore, I will continue to call the mentally dead by the name Negro, for the emphasis of the fact that the person does not become something else just by changing his name, but instead by changing his mind. After the mind is changed by the knowledge of resurrection, then it's proper to change the name. When the negative enslaved mind of the Negro is changed by right knowledge, wisdom and understanding, she will automatically cease being a Negro, and everybody will know it by his words and works. The slave master taught 9E for woolly-haired people that it was disobedience to God that caused enslavement of any kind, but NWPU informs you that it is a cheap and cynical falsehood designed to falsely justify the enslavement of people. NWPU discloses that the opposites by cycle and law of nature cannot rule on the earth equally at the same time. The slave master taught the Nubian slaves that God put a curse of black skin and kinky hair upon you. NWPU teaches you that it is purely false, because Nubians had black or brown skin and woolly hair from the original creation before this planet Earth, and black skin provides the best protection against exposure and disease, and woolly hair means that the sun heat genes, the genes of life, are much stronger in woolly-haired people than they are in straight-haired people. Hence, woolly hair is a sign of life and originality. However, NWPU does agree that God did put a curse on the darker peoples, but the curse is not woolly hair and black skin. Instead, the curse that God put on you is following a way that leads to death. In the 17,250,000 year period of evolution, Leviathan would have ghost eyes bleached everybody, but the laws of opposites of nature forbade it, and those laws are binding. God, the creator of the Tamahu race, represents riches for them and poverty for you, except for those people willing and ready, for a price, to step on the necks of the race of their own people while doing the wishes and wills of their master. The Bible is a book tampered with and thereby possessed by will and power that spellbinds the weak-minded and the gullible and the ignorant. The opposing forces may rule, but the cycle for the Bible was the moon cycle, and that cycle is ended. Their deity exists indeed, but it does not exist in your favor. Neither preachers nor imams nor anyone else know who God is unless he knows what God is and the nature of the substance of God. They know who their God is and what their God is. God and devil are opposite sides of the same thing, Leviathan. This means that their God is not going to destroy the devil as the Bible pretends and deceives, because destroying the devil means destroying Leviathan, and that would be the end of their deity, for Leviathan produces their God, Ghost. Yet their God is the death of Leviathan, in the sense that the moon cycle marked the climax and end of evolution, and Leviathan is the evolutionary forces. If one knows the nature of the Tamahu, he knows the nature of their deity, if they are made in the image and after his likeness, for the Tamahu are the children of the God, Ghost. Their nature is to oppress and cause you suffering and death. It stands to reason that the oppressive slave master did not and will not give the slave anything which he thinks may one day liberate the slave. Therefore, you know that the Bible and the spirit forces thereof will never liberate the captive. Hence, the powers in the NWPU are the only liberation forces for the woolly-haired peoples everywhere. The powers in the NWPU are knowledge, reason, and 9 ether. There is a special project underway by Leviathan to further leopardize and ghostize your race, the world of the woolly-haired peoples, by changing original hair, original color, and original features to those of other races. In other words, destroy beautiful woolly hair and pretty dark brown skin by one-sided racial miscegenation, which is one-sided racial sexual mixing. They are creating a new race, or neutral race, where you can't tell what their nationality is. Leviathan is using straight-haired men and women in its attempt to destroy you through the sexual use of woolly-haired women and men. Male new beings must also refuse to have sexual relationships with alien women and refuse to mongrelize their seed by refusing to father offspring by women of Tamahu races. The hybrids born from interracial sexual mixing are not accepted in the Canaanite race, and they are not accepted by the Nubian race, so that leaves another human without an identity. The only way you can correct this problem is through the acceptance of right knowledge, right wisdom, and a right understanding, which leads to the right thinking and right actions and right reasoning. Being careful how 6 Ether subliminally seduces 9 Ether into worshipping 6 Ether. A woolly-haired woman should never buy a Canaanite doll for her child, because that mentally and spiritually ties the child to the Canaanite race and compels the child to think it is alright for her to have real babies that look like the doll. Buying NWPU of Nubian dolls for NWPU children goes a long way towards restoring racial pride and self-respect in the eyes and minds of children, as well as the restoration of respect from other races. There is nothing wrong with identifying with whatever race or culture you are from, because that's you, be it with your dress, your hair, or your features, or your way of life, and you should not, nor should anyone else make you feel intimidated or inferior because of it. When Europeans identify with France, Germany, Holland, England, Poland, Scotland, it's considered being cultural. When you identify with Egypt, Nigeria, Sudan, Ethiopia, it's considered a cult. The Tamahu's last stand to perpetuate the spell, influence and rule is the woman, the Tamahu woman. He used to let an old Tamahu woman slip out of his hands once in a while to one of his real good Negro captives, but when you see the Tamahu, the oppressor, letting his girls and young women go hand in hand with Negro males, this is truly a sign of the decline and fall of Tamahu power and rule, because he will only let some of his young women go freely, but reluctantly, in order to try and keep the oppressed confused, deceived and spellbound, for the purpose of remaining master as long as possible. The Tamahu race is using all the tricks available to keep you from regaining liberty, equality, justice and rightness. But when you get hold of right knowledge and accept it, your wisdom and understanding grow, and that person is able to see all the tricks of the oppressor and take the right steps to avoid them by helping the forces of nature. If you don't take the proper and necessary steps to change yourselves, then you deserve to be mistreated. You are your own responsibility. The help you seek is at the end of your own arm. NWPUs are to become aware. They are waking up to all of the deceptions and lies. For the first time since the rule of Cheops 5,000 years ago, woolly-haired people are being given a real choice between right or wrong, knowledge or ignorance, liberty or serfdom, equality or inequality, justice or injustice, life or death, own spiritual science NWPU or alien religion, meaning liberty with 9 Ether or captivity with God and Jesus or Muhammad worship called Islam. When sufficient circulation of these choices has been completed and sufficient time has been allowed to accept or reject these choices through understanding, Armageddon will climax with fire, artificial fire and natural fire. The last war of the moon cycle is called Armageddon. Armageddon will start before the end of the moon cycle and will continue until the universe, including orb Earth, is in the rule of liberty, rightness, justice and equality again. Armageddon is the war of the resurrection of the dead, the mentally dead. Armageddon is the showdown between right and wrong, between life and death. If a Negro male and female can read and study this tablet and still have the same old negative mind and the same old negative spirit, that means a person is a black devil and keeps a person a Negro. That individual is incapable of being resurrected from the mentally dead and is definitely detrimental to the cause of the new being's progress and well-being, because indeed that person is on the side of the enemy of liberty, equality, justice and nationalism. Furthermore, if a Negro simply reads these teachings and the knowledge in them and does not start a growing fire for mental resurrection, liberty and equality, that person is dead forever and is a bigger liability to the progress and well-being than the alien enemy himself, because you know the alien enemy on sight, but those enemies amongst you that look like you are more dangerous, for the only way you know them is by their words or deeds or both. Therefore, the enemies amongst you that look like you are enemies of right NWPU goals, the same as the alien oppressor. They are black devils. NWPU is the best knowledge, wisdom and understanding. NWPU is the equalizer anywhere and any time, and it will be disclosed when the minds of all woolly-haired people with the ability to identify themselves with 9 Ether have been qualified, and that time is now, right now, if accepted and diligently studied as well as read. This tablet is dedicated and designed to separate the sheep from the goat, separate those who can make it from those who cannot make it, those who are not flexible enough to reform and conform to right knowledge through sound right reasoning will not survive Armageddon. The showdown between right and wrong is right now. Come and join your own.